Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Just more Q&A, Landis. We do this at times, and we did a call out with our Substack subscribers the other day, and we did a great show on Substack for those premium folks. And we had so many questions. We're like, let's do another show. So now here we are on YouTube doing another round of Ohio State Q&A, and we appreciate everybody joining us, Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. But first, Bill, you said you were looking stuff up.
Yeah, I want to write about Ohio State's rushing attack. I feel like that is the thing that people are kind of most fired up about coming off of the Illinois game. I don't think it's unwarranted. It was a bad rushing game. Like even if you account for the fact that they were in the red zone and on short fields a lot, it was one of the worst rushing performances of the Ryan Day era, just by like a yards per carry perspective. So and I think there's real questions about it, like stuff Ohio State needs to figure out moving forward. So yeah, I was diving into some of that that I plan on writing about later this week on the Substack.
Three biggest issues, quick hit, with the run game, specifically.
I think they are far too reliant on a tight end group that I don't think has earned that. Like they're okay. I think Will Kazmarek is a good blocker. Like he did not have his best game against Illinois, but I think he's a pretty good run blocker. He's like kind of the only one. Like I don't think this tight end group is as good as their playing time would suggest, right? They're just playing too much out of 12 personnel in my opinion, or like 13 or 14, whatever. I think they would. We've had these conversations before, right? I think they could do themselves a lot of favors by running more out of 11 personnel, spreading the field more, not condensing it from the jump and then making themselves. There's always a trade-off, right? Like Ryan Day was talking about rushing surfaces, right? Like just how far across are you making the defense account for? How many gaps? When you put multiple tight ends out there, you add gaps for them to defend. But then you also bring more bodies in, and I don't know that they're built to handle all those bodies. I think they're more built to spread it out and then try to run it that way. So that's one issue. Another, I think, is the running back stuff. We've been hard on that position. I think some people have pointed out that maybe at times it's been a little unfair. I don't know that I would say that. Running backs don't make guys miss. Their missed tackle forced rate against Power 5 competition this year is like 7%, which is like half of the next worst missed tackle rate in the Ryan Day era. So that's an issue, right? Like I think there's a little too much of getting what's blocked for. And you would expect to get more of that. Like they do not have explosive runs. They hardly ever get to the second level. Part of that you can put on the blocking, I suppose, but I would put it more on the running backs. So the position groups that I think are most hindering the rushing attack are tight end and running backs. Offensive line did not have a great day against Illinois. I still think it's a pretty good offensive line. There have been times in the past when Ohio State has run the ball ineffectively that I think you might point to the offensive line first. I wouldn't do that right now. And then I think they got to figure out what to hang their hat on. I don't know that they know that yet. And Ryan Day kind of mentioned that on Tuesday, right? Like figuring out 6 games of information, now figuring out what best suits their personnel and then trying to ride that moving forward. I don't even know if I have a great answer for that, honestly, because there's times you can watch a game like, I think it's counter. And then there are other games you can watch like, oh, they're pretty good on inside zone. I don't know. So that is probably like the third prong. I think that's like figuring out best uses of your tight ends, get the running backs going a little better, and then figure out what you're hanging your hat on. What's your bread and butter run play with this group?
How fixable does it feel to you?
Like fairly fixable, I think. The running back thing, I think, can be addressed by just like more Bo Jackson,
and more healthy Bo Jackson,
a more healthy Bo Jackson. Maybe as we've discussed, like sprinkle in some Isaiah West, see what that looks like. I don't think they're going to shelf C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples, but find the right mix at running back that works. I think could do a lot. And then like I don't know, I think like Tyler Bowen. It's got a decent like run game coordination background. They have decent run game diversity too. You might wonder if they have too much. So I think there are answers within that to figure some stuff out. But it is like, you can value, I guess, whichever statistic you'd like to value when trying to evaluate a run game. I grabbed a handful of them and looks like put them all on a chart, and there are more than a few in that chart with this particular season that are the worst of the Ryan Day era right now, including success rate. So it's not great. It doesn't need to be the thing that fuels the offense, but I think it needs to be more reliable than it is now. Because the thing you worry about, right, is like when's the bad weather game going to come when you can't really throw the ball, right? That Northwestern game a couple of years ago. So um, I think once they get to the postseason, similar to last year, they will be more of a throw first team. But at the moment, they are a run first team, and they're not very good at it. The one thing that I looked up, and like I guess I'll share this. So like success rate down to down, how often are you doing what you should do? There are only 3 teams in the Power 4 who have a worse success rate running the ball than Ohio State, who run it more than Ohio State. Wisconsin, West Virginia, and South Carolina, like 3 pretty mid to bad teams. Like,
well, Wisconsin, huge quarterback injury. West Virginia, huge quarterback questions. Bench the starter who's now redshirting. South Carolina, their starting quarterback's been hurt for at least part of the year. So they're running because they have to because they can't throw.
Yeah. And they're worse at it than Ohio State.
Ohio State has Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and they're doing this. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, you guys, what happened to the pass game that you're forced to run so much? Tell us, what happened? I don't know. We have the best receivers in the country.
Yeah. We're saving. The answer is like, we're saving it. Yeah. Right. Which is like, I think people on one side of your brain, it's like, I get it. I know why they're doing it. And on the other side of the brain, it's like, this sucks to watch. Like, can you please throw the ball a little more?
And even a little different than saving it is we know we're good at this, so we're trying to work on the thing we know we're not as good at, but we're still winning while working it out.
Yes.
And we don't have to prove to ourselves or anyone else that Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are awesome. Correct. We are trying to figure out this run game so we can be balanced and effective and not easy to plan for against Michigan and in the playoff. And if that means we look a little clunky against Illinois or Wisconsin or Purdue or UCLA or Rutgers, so be it. And Ryan Day got a version kind of that question on Tuesday, which is, I think it's a worthy question, right? But it's also kind of weird to ask of like, Ryan, do you know you're kind of bad at this? And the reason you're doing it a lot is because you're bad and you're trying to get better. And he got a version of that question. And I think he said kind of yes to that question.
Yeah, he did. But then he also said, like, I have the quotes here in front of me. He said, when you look at how many runs were inside the 10 and how many short yardage runs there were, overall, the efficiency was pretty good. And like, that's not true. Okay. I looked this stuff up, right?
Yeah.
Excluding runs inside the 10, excluding short yardage runs, and excluding 2 kneel downs, they averaged 3.5 yards a carry. It's not the worst, but that's not good efficiency. So like, but he's also like, he's never been, and on rare occasions, has he been the kind of coach that has come up to the podium, pounded his fist and said like, this isn't good enough, right? Like he usually handles that behind closed doors. So like, I know he's not going to take a blowtorch to his rushing attack in a press conference. But I thought
Urban Meyer would, especially early on. Urban Meyer would say the running back, our run game is a clown show.
Right. Ryan Day's not going to do that. But I also thought it was like a little disingenuous to say like, well, other than this, and this, it was efficient. I was like, it really wasn't. They've had 2 really bad running games against Texas, which has an excellent run defense, and against Illinois, which has like a mid-level run defense.
But in which, and both of those, to be honest, Bo Jackson did not play against Texas, and he got hurt and was not himself against Illinois.
Yeah, which I think is worth like kind of chewing on a little bit as you ponder that, right? Like I think that that gets back to like, are there fixes? And I think the answer is yes. But I also think in the search to find those fixes, you probably will continue to see Ohio State run the ball a little more than you'd like them to.
And also, it's not just give it to Bo Jackson and he immediately solves everything. This idea of I'm very interested to read it on Substack, and we would invite you to enjoy our premium content. Bill and Doug, OSU.substack.com. The idea that they love to put multiple tight ends in the game and run the ball, and their multiple tight ends, a lot of them aren't blocking great. Like, that is a primary part of this that feels like that is fixable if you're willing to choose to fix it. Because I don't know that. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to teach those 4 tight ends to block better in the run game? It's like, no, you're just going to ask them to do it less, and you're going to play 3 receivers and run it out of that. So, like, that's fixable, but they have to choose to do that. Do you think they will?
Here and there, I don't know that they're going to totally, because again, like, that's something like if you feel like you landed on a better way of doing it, like, do you unveil it in its entirety now? Do you try to save some of it for when you get into the postseason? Like clearly they are in that mindset, right? It worked for them so well last year. Why would they deviate from the plan? Because honestly, like, for as much as we talk about Chip Kelly, like, their running game was not that good for much of last year. To be honest, like, their running game was helped a lot by how good Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins were. They were not terribly efficient, but they were very explosive because of how good those guys were. Right now, they're really neither efficient nor explosive. But I think they could progress them both with some tweaks here and there. So, like, yeah, I think they'll do it some. I just really don't get, and maybe it's just like I'm not a football coach and I don't have the mental capacity for doing it, but like, they run into a heavy box a lot. Like, and like even against Illinois, it was like 70% of the time. Now, part of that's red zone. I get that, like, shorter field, it's impossible not to. But even removed from the red zone, they still run into a heavy box at a pretty high clip for a team that is able to throw the ball as well as they're able to. So it's a little puzzling to me. Maybe there's a method to the madness, but I think the bottom line is, like, the rushing attack is not good. Like, it's not Ohio State standard at the moment. And, like, can it get there? Should they need it to? I think is the question.
Okay. All right. Let's get to some Q&A. But before we do, I just would like to remind everybody that's there. Man, Rhoback has some good stuff. And I'll tell you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Rhoback.com, RHOBACK.com. I clicked on Game Day, their Game Day collection. And they have all these different college football teams. I clicked on Ohio State. And then I clicked on the Serenity Collegiate Half Zip. It's the women's Serenity Collegiate Half Zip, and it is custom embroidery. So, like, when you order this, it's going to maybe take like a week to 10 days because they're going to custom embroider like the Ohio State logo on it. And then otherwise, they have options in heather and ivory. It is just a really nice, soft, cozy, subtle quarter zip, women's quarter zip with just a very high quality Ohio State logo embroidered on it. And so again, it's like, man, it's like, it's not in your face, but it represents your love for Ohio State. It's comfy, it's classy. So this is a great thing for all the female fans out there. Like, go check this out. Maybe it's like, man, this is like you can wear it to work. You can wear it like out to dinner. You wear it on game day and feel like, oh man, maybe I don't want to wear my jersey today. I want to wear like something cool in the fall. Or you could buy it for a woman in your life who likes Ohio State and maybe is like, oh man, she's really gonna like this like comfy, cool quarter zip. Like, and buy it for Christmas, for a birthday present. And she'll be like, wow, like, I really enjoy wearing this. And then also you get to represent your Ohio State fandom. So again, like, that's just kind of the stuff that Rhoback has, Landis. So they have it for women, they have it for men, they have unisex, they have all kinds of stuff, polos, quarter zips, hoodies, whatever. But that's just an example of like this, like, really nice article of clothing with a well-embroidered Ohio State thing on it. Rhoback.com, 20% off, BAD20. Put in that code, BAD20. You get 20% off your order. Let's go to our actual questions. This is from John. It's about super teams. After last season's national championship win, I, like others, viewed the 2025 season as a transition year. I still thought they would make the playoff, but wasn't sure how much of a contender they truly would be with so much turnover from a coordinator and personnel perspective. I just figured 2026 would be our next best shot and a chance to be a super team and to win the title again, with Julian Sain as a second-year starter, Jeremiah Smith in year 3. But is this 2025 team actually the super team? So John is mentioning Carnell Tate, Caleb Downs, Davis Igbenogson, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caden Curry, and many others who will potentially or certainly will be gone after this season.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the super team? Downs and Arvell seem so irreplaceable. Is this the year? So, I think maybe the concept of all of this is just no longer worth thinking about with Ohio State, because with the transfer portal and with your ability to change your roster and everything, there's less certainty, but there's always opportunity. And why should every year be a super team? But also, maybe he's right.
Could be right. Yeah, I guess what are you using as your criteria to define a super team, I guess? And it's like how many guys on the roster you feel are irreplaceable. I guess the thing with that is like every year, like a season ends and you think like, well, this guy, and this guy are irreplaceable. And then at a place like Ohio State, like new guys just sort of step up. So
Yeah,
I think there's some part of it. It's like, you're always going to kind of feel that way. Well, I thought that team was great. And I can't believe how good these guys are now, because Ohio State recruits well and develops well and gets good guys out of the portal. So, I think maybe if you look at it more in terms of like a window, and like we said before, like Ohio State doesn't have windows, but there are moments in time where the opportunity feels like a little more ripe, perhaps, to go after a national championship than others. And because of the natty or bust conversation last year, like so much was focused on that year that maybe we thought that particular opportunity was like a 1-year proposition. And I think what's happened is like it was a multi-year proposition because of the talent that was waiting, the 2023 recruiting class guys who were kind of like hanging around in plain sight, the 2022 guys, only 7 of them that stuck around, the quarterback, Jeremiah Smith. Like, so I don't know what, like, I don't know that I would say like 2024 wasn't the super team. This is the super team. I would like link them together and say that like together they are like a super whatever group of players or something. I'm not sure how to couch it exactly.
But I would say coming into the year, I got the idea of like, maybe 26 is the year, right? Like give Julian Saint a second year as a starter. You still have Jeremiah Smith. And if that's what you're building that idea around, I think that would make sense to me. The thing that I think is, so one thing is like a lot of times when we talk about super teams, and I know like there were people, I think Ari was very adamant about this, that like what Ohio State had last year was like the last time we're ever going to see a team like that because of NIL on the portal. And it's like, I like it. I just mentioned an Ari opinion, and Landis was like, I'm going to pop a lollipop in my mouth and sit back and try to take this.
I can't believe Ari wrote something in absolutes that may not have been true.
Yeah.
Our guy, we're going to have him on next week.
So we're excited to have him on. But so like in terms of like, are you ever going to have 15 people turn down the NFL to stay it or whatever? Like, I don't know. But also I think probably like college football is not changing. I mean, like the talent's flattening out. We all understand that.
Yeah.
The thing that I think has happened, and it's just like, you can start down a road with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. It's like, when's the last time you saw 2 receivers? Like, I don't know, like maybe when you had Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave all on the same team in 2021, like that. I don't know. Like it's difficult sometimes with Ohio State to say, well, I've never seen this before. This is the best it's ever been. Cause then it's like, well, I don't know. This was pretty awesome too. But here's my point. Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs, arguably, or maybe inarguably, coming into the season were viewed as the best offensive player in college football and the best defensive player in college football. And the establishing of 2 absolutely bona fide running mates for those guys, that Carnell Tate, no one is saying Carnell Tate is better than Jeremiah Smith, but Carnell Tate looks as good as basically any other receiver in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what Arvell Reese has become at linebacker, and the force that he has become, and all the draft people who are like, actually, Arvell Reese is going to be higher than Caleb Downs. So you had these outstanding individuals who now have had like sidekicks who are, co-conspirators rise up to their same level. And now you're talking about these duos on both sides of the ball. That is pretty extraordinary. And I'm not trying to say like, is this the best defensive duo in Ohio State history? It's like, what No, yes, there's 1,000 other candidates. But that, I think, is what has changed, Landis, because it felt like Jeremiah's good and Caleb's good, and there's some other good guys around him. And it's like, no, there are like 4 absolute superstars. And then, by the way, the 5-star quarterback who had never played before looks like he's got a handle on this thing. I don't know if you have to wait to year 2 as a starter for this to fully flourish. And you start with those 5, and then I think you can get to a super team conversation pretty quickly, especially when you believe that 3 of those 5, Tate, Downs, and Reese, aren't going to be back next year.
Yeah. No, that's probably right. I think like Arvell Reese to me feels like maybe the real driver of it. It's like, wait, we had a guy step up who people are talking about him like he's going to be the first non-quarterback drafted.
Yeah,
like that's what they think of Arvell Reese. And that was just like, I don't think anyone was expecting that, right? Like you're hopeful that you can fill in the gaps for the guys that left and like some of the transfers hit, and you get excited about guys stepping up into their roles. But for one of them to like practically immediately vault himself into like, I'm the best defensive player in college football,
right,
is pretty remarkable. And like I understand why it would push people in the direction of like, actually this is a super team. I guess I would say like it doesn't have to be an either or, right? Can they just both be super teams?
Well, so I mean, the point that John was really making is like, is 25 the super team, not 26? It's not really about was 24 not a super team, right?
Because I just don't think there's enough money in the Ohio State war chest yet to keep Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, and Carnell Tate from going to the NFL draft.
Can you imagine? Who's that guy? Yeah, whoever that would be.
You're talking about I don't know, $70 to $80 million in rookie contracts. you're trying to account for there.
What if LeBron James was just like, you know what? I want to see those guys in the shoe next year. And LeBron was just like, one-time donation, $75 million, $25 million each for Arvell, Caleb, and Carnell.
Run it would just have to do whatever their first year is, I guess, because his contract would still be waiting for them on the other side. But yeah, I mean, $5 million college players. Like, can you have 4 of them on your roster? Yeah. I don't think so.
LeBron just really wants to see Ohio State go for a 3-peat. He's like, I'll do whatever it takes. Keep him in school. Yeah. He flies them all out on a private jet, and then they all stay. So that's the thing. But to your point, it's like, well, then next year when whatever, it's Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith and Bo Jackson as your trio of offensive people, and it's like, is this the best offensive trio in the history of Ohio State football? And
also,
it's like, maybe this is the super team.
A very good chance that your entire offensive line is back. Still key guys on defense, right? And like, we think like Riley Pettijohn's not going to be a freak, you know what I mean? Like, right. So, and Devin Sanchez like stepping up into like, yeah, there's plenty of guys waiting that come next September, you're going to think Ohio State can win a national title then too. Trust me.
But I think Reese is probably the game changer. That if it feels like are Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs the 2 best defense, with Ruben Bain from Miami, but like that kind of thing, that it's not, and I don't know if I viewed it as a transitional year, but I did not view Ohio State as like the national title favorite coming into this season, and the betting lines didn't reflect that.
No, it didn't feel like, Ohio State is a program that always like reloads. I understand that, but it did not feel like let's like just simply reloading and going after another championship. It did feel like it was going to take a year for that to gel before they really made a run at it again. But that appears to not be the case.
But that is and it will be influenced to some degree by what they wind up doing as professionals. But if Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith in particular wind up being what you think they can be, as pros, and then like in 20 years, will we sit back and be like, man, 2025, that was the last time Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith played together. Can you believe they were on the same team for 2 straight years? And that one of them won't be here next year. Like that's possible. I will say, like, so that I say, like, well, what about 2021 with those crazy 3 receivers? Just looking at like Ohio State's leading tacklers from that year, like who was the best defensive player Ohio State had in 2021? It's picking from like between Ronnie Hickman, Tommy Eichenberg, and Zach Harrison, right? Like that's And so as much as it's like, and Haskell Garrett, right? So like that's the kind of, and it's like, well, I don't see it, no offense, but there's no Caleb Downs in there. There's nobody in there who is having the impact that Arbel Reese is. So that's the part of this, that there is just sort of like mind-blowing combos of talent on both sides of the ball, is where somebody like John, and I think correctly, is saying like, wait, is this a super team? It's like, it's a super 4, maybe a super 5, if you're okay with putting Sayan in there the way he's handled his business. And now we're talking about 5 out of 22. It's like, is this the best 5-some in Ohio State history? It's like, okay, now we're talking something. So then, interesting. I like super teams.
What are if we need a definitive list of the best 5-somes in Ohio State history, no?
Yeah, it's an off-season project. Because that's how everybody thinks about sports. What's your best? Although we could just do like we do like the basketball starting lineup. Give us your best 5. Put your best 5 out there. But we're not going to make them play different basketball positions. We're going to talk about 5 guys.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good, for real. Now I actually want to do it right now. Sayan, Smith, Tate, Downs, Reese, the way they're playing right now. That's hard to beat.
So 19, Fields, Dobbins, Young,
Olave.
Yeah, probably Olave. I don't know that you'd say Garrett Wilson freshman, but maybe you would. Like Okuda.
Yeah, who was the 3rd pick in the draft? That's probably it. Yeah. Young, Okuda, Olave, Dobbins, Fields versus Reese, Downs, Tate, Smith, Sayan. All right, let's just do this for the next hour.
But then 14 have like Zeke. Although 14, you probably go Zeke and then like all defense, right? Or maybe like Zeke and Taylor Decker, and then the other 3 are on defense. Zeke, Taylor Decker, Joey Bosa, Darren Lee, Von Bell.
Right. I mean, it's like you could work in Michael Thomas or Devin Smith if you wanted to, but like, So anyway, it's oh my gosh. Well, that'll just be the off-season project. Like best 3-somes, best 4-somes, best 5-somes. It's like, what's the best 9-some in Ohio State football history? Check out the Bill and Doug show for the answer. All right, this is Cliff. I was watching the NFL and thinking how less than a year ago on November 30th, I was wondering if there was any possibility of Mike Vrabel, because I had officially lost faith in Day. Now I'm having thoughts of his Ryan Day on the precipice of making Ohio State the consistent top of the food chain program in college football for the next few years. It's incredible the run he's been on since that game. There seemed to be a mental shift for him after that game and during the run, but I also look at holistically how he seems to have been one step ahead of the rest of college football managing the season in the 12-game playoff format. Then he talks about Matt Patricia and all these things. It's just kind of like an expression of like holy moly from Cliff. But to think about Mike Vrabel as the head coach of the New England Patriots right now and where Ryan Day is in the sport of college football, and that if they had lost to Tennessee, I don't know that any Ohio State fan will ever stop thinking about that, because if it is the greatest 6-week shift in modern sports history. If you really want to dig into it, I can't think of one more drastic than this and it's both a program, but as it relates to a particular individual, that I don't know if this guy's
what just happened to James Franklin is pretty drastic in a short period of time. Like it's the other way, but
so that's a good comparison. But so there were always questions about Franklin. As good as he was, there were lingering questions. And then, so it was like good with questions that turned bad. I think Day's turn to good was more surprising, because I think Ryan Day and James Franklin were always similar in that good but lingering questions, right? Big game questions for Ryan Day, Michigan rivalry questions. I actually think Day and Franklin were like, Day was like half a step ahead.
I think generally too, like big game questions, right? Like prior to the playoff run, Ryan's Day did not have a sparkling record against like top 5 teams.
No. But like Ohio State under Day overall was more successful because they were beating Penn State. They had made the playoff. Penn State hasn't. Ohio State was a more successful program than Penn State. But the way James Franklin and Ryan Day were viewed was pretty similar, right? They were won at a high level consistently, but could they get over the top? And you had real questions about whether they could get over the top. So then what is more surprising? To fall apart and get fired, or to rise up, win a national championship, and now be viewed as maybe the best coach in the sport? So I think they are both. You're very correct to compare them and to say, hey, that was a pretty crazy quick change also. But I think to have two coaches like that, I think to rise above it so quickly instead to fall off a cliff and be fired so quickly, I think rising above is more surprising.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah.
Not that anyone thought James Franklin would get fired, but it's like, okay, well, yeah, no, it fell apart quickly, but he always had trouble winning when it mattered. And so now this season mattered for Penn State and he couldn't win.
I do think that there was a thought coming into the year that if Penn State did not win a national title or get close to it, if their relationship would have run its course. Is that a firing or just a mutual parting of ways or whatever? But like, there were people entertaining the idea that James Franklin might not coach Penn State beyond this year if they didn't get it done. Right. It just happened to play out in a way no one was expecting.
But I don't know how many people were entertaining, even though his record was great. I mean, who's the best coach in college football? And like, why would you
I don't know that
Kirby's,
there is one. I don't know.
Why would you say Kirby's like, okay, that's probably the right answer. It's not Dabo anymore. Why would you say Kirby Smart? Like, he's good, of course, but like they have real problems. And who else would you say? So if perhaps the title is vacant, but if you're making a list, if you're just doing a list, someone's got to be number one, and it might be Ryan Day.
Sure.
And so it's not just a conversation about, because it's interesting what Cliff is bringing up. Like, it's not just winning. It's that, has Ryan Day figured out? Has Ryan Day cracked the code on modern college football? Because one of the parts that I kind of ya'd for Cliff, I mean, the deliberate approach to keeping guys fresh, the elite game planning during the playoffs, and more, all provided significant advantages in talent-equated games. So like that, it's not just that they won, but he showed real coaching acumen and expertise in the process of winning when there was so much doubt about that ability previous.
Yeah, I mean, he and Ohio State were like pioneers of sorts, because like they were the first team that had to like navigate this, right?
Yeah.
To figure out everything it took to win in the 12-team playoff era. Both like navigating the ups and downs of the regular season, which now you can lose and win a title so long as you can like recalibrate and put yourself in the right position to do it. Like they were the ones that had to figure that out first. So, and then you feel like from that they kind of got a blueprint, and Ryan Day is like the mastermind of that blueprint. So, yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that if you were to pick someone as the best coach in college football, I think that's what would lead you to saying it's Ryan Day, because we'll see what happens this year, but he's the only one that's had the opportunity to do it, and he did it really well. We'll see if somebody else does it this year. But yeah, there was nobody last November who thought that Ryan Day was the best coach in college football, and 2 months later, people were having the conversation.
Right. All right. Johnny Utah. There seems to be something different about this team. More energy, more focus. I'm not quite sure what, but I feel like I've never had more trust in the team and coaches. As media guys, have you noticed anything different from previous years in approach, style, preparation, etc.? Vibes.
I mean, Day's different. And maybe that's just you look at him different because he's got a national title, but I think he carries himself differently. More more conviction, I think, in his way of running a program, which I'm sure most coaches have with the 6 years of doing it. I think there's like energy with. I was not expecting the energy from the players that this group appears to have, right? Like if there was any like, we're the top dog, we won the title last year, it's ours until someone says otherwise kind of vibe. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised by that. That's almost probably the natural response. But I have like gotten like not a whiff of any of that. Like they
Yeah.
have had a really good approach, I think, to this season, and like the proper mindset I think needed to go chase another championship. So that was not a given, but I do think that is something you pick up on. That does feel a little different if you spend time around the team.
And I think it's the thing that you and I had zeroed in on a Substack show earlier this year, comparing the 2025 team and the 2015 team, is that in the end, if you're trying to repeat, you actually don't want too much experience. You don't want everybody back. And so that Ohio State seems to have hit the sweet spot of a couple key guys in some key spots: Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, Davison Igbinosun, Sonny Styles, Carnell Tate, Austin Sareveld, some guys who have been around the block a little bit, but a lot of guys who, and as Ryan Day says, like, this team hasn't won anything. Like, there's a lot of guys on this team who have rings who did not feel like a primary part of it. So they know what it takes, but they didn't feel like they were drivers of that winning. And so they are super motivated like that. So Arvell Reese has a ring, but Arvell Reese doesn't play like he has a ring. Arvell Reese plays like he's trying to prove to the world, like, hey, I'm a great football player, because he played 300 snaps last year and nobody knew that. Mm-hmm. So it really, it feels like it's changed my view of how to view especially championship teams. And when you're trying to do it again, it's like you can't plan this, but it's actually right in the right spot. So you have all the good of having won, but none of the bad or the burden of having won, because you have just enough veteran know-how and guys knowing what it takes, but none of that part of it that makes you complacent. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you could plan for these vibes, but I think what Johnny is pointing out, like, is that kind of rare circumstance that they sort of fell into by happenstance.
Yeah, there's I don't know. It's easy to, like, ascribe this to a team after the fact, but like I remember having conversations going into 2015 about, like, you know, the most famous players in college football and like how many of them were Ohio State Buckeyes. And
that was a bad podcast.
Yeah, and it did but it did not. It felt a little bit like maybe, and it's like probably I would have done it too. Like you can handle that celebrity two very different ways, right? And I don't know. Maybe that 2015 group did it the best. I'm not saying across the board, but like here and there, maybe didn't handle that the best. And like the guys who would fall into that category for this particular team, I just think like handle it very well. That's mostly like a Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith conversation. But even like Sonny Styles, maybe Carnell Tate too, like they're just very much about their work. And I don't really like, you know, they make their money, they do their ads like and stuff like that. I'm not saying they don't do any of it, but I don't think they're distracted by their fame and or the fact that they already have a championship ring. And when you have like your best players kind of setting the tone that way, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I agree. Kyle on the Big Ten Championship. Tell me why I should care about the Big Ten Championship anymore. It's almost certainly going to be a tiebreaker for either one or both spots. And if the teams haven't played each other already, it's essentially random who will win the tiebreaker. And I'd rather have a home night game in the playoff than travel to Indy for the Big Ten Championship and then have a first round bye. So that is like the conversation about this of like, it's, you know, you wind up playing the same number of games. Now, the thing is, if you go play in the Big Ten Championship and you lose, you're not out. So it's like, oh, I'd rather have a home playoff game than go play in the Big Ten Championship. It's like, okay, well, if you lose the home playoff game, you're out. So you're picking one more do or die game. From a fan fun perspective, I mean, how many Ohio State fans would say their favorite game they've ever been to is the win over Tennessee in the shoe last year, right? I mean, a lot of people. That was a spectacular night, was it not, Landis?
It was, I think anyone who was there, maybe like unless you were at the 2016 Michigan game, would say that was the best game you were ever at.
Yeah. So like there's that conversation, but then like you know, and it's also part of what they're getting at here is like how much do you actually care that you're Big Ten champs? And like the thing I would say, I don't know that there are gonna be, they'll sell them, you know, and sometimes people get excited in the moment. So that if Ohio State, they always sell Big Ten championship t-shirts, but if you're Purdue or Iowa or a team like that, it's like a Big Ten championship t-shirt. Like that's my favorite shirt. And if you're an Ohio State fan and you're like, I'm wearing my Big Ten championship t-shirt, it's like, that's nice, but I don't know. Is that like, oh yeah. So I think it's maybe slightly lesser from a fan perspective, but I do think the program cares about it, at least some, mostly because they haven't won one since 2020.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And also too, like if they're giving away a trophy, Ohio
Yes.
State wants it, right? It's weird. Like it feels like a little bit of a college basketball conversation to me too, right? Because like I always think like in college basketball, it's far more impressive to win your regular season league title than it is to like get hot for 5 games and go win your tournament title. But like winning your tournament title in basketball, even if you're like if you're a team for whom like the results of the tournament really have no bearing whatsoever on your postseason, like you're going to the NCAA tournament, you're going to be a high seed. There is still something that's like a little bit of a letdown to like not be the team that's cutting down the nets in like Indy or Chicago, or wherever the Big Ten tournament happens to be that year, right? So I wonder if college football will find itself in a similar place. Like in my mind, I do think a little bit like conference championships have like run its course in the 12-team playoff. They're not that important anymore. But once we get to that point, I think it'll still feel important, right? Like once Ohio State gets on the other side of the Michigan game and presumably is going to Indy to play for a Big Ten title, I think you as a fan are like gonna want to win it. But at the moment, it does feel rather inconsequential.
And if they win it this year, when Ryan Day and those players get up on the stage and lift that trophy, all those emotions will be real.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like that's real. And again, I think it matters. I think the emotions of the moment, it matters. I think for history, it matters because like in history, in the end, when you talk about Ryan Day, you're going to say Ryan Day in his career at Ohio State, he won this many national championships. He won this many Big Ten championships. You will. I don't think we're out of that era. He made this many playoffs and this is his record. So it is part of history. So I think for history, it matters. And I think in the emotion of the moment, it matters. The hard part, and I completely understand the question, because like what Kyle is getting at is, for instance, Oregon won the Big Ten championship last year. But does anybody care? And so like, what does anybody mean? Well, it primarily means, do Oregon's fans care that they won the Big Ten championship when they were the number 1 seed? They were the only undefeated regular season team, and they lost their first playoff game by a lot to Ohio State. Are they like, well, at least we're Big Ten champs? Does the program care? And like, does the world care? When you think about the 2024 college football season, will you be like, the Big Ten champion Oregon Ducks? Like, probably not.
Well, the problem is they lost to Ohio State, right? If they had lost to literally anybody else in the Rose Bowl, I do think you cherish the Big Ten title a little more fondly. But the team you beat by a point at home then kicked your butt on a neutral field. It's like, well, actually, that was the best team in the Big Ten.
So I think the circumstances, and I think you're right. The circumstances do matter. So, because I was going to say, I think in a lot of ways, in a year when you don't win the national championship, like winning the Big Ten championship's a nice thing, except we just said like, it doesn't, like Oregon maybe was actually sort of like the exception to the rule last year, like why that it doesn't actually matter. But if Ohio State coming off a national championship, if they win the Big Ten championship this year, and then for whatever reason, they just lose in the semis, stuff happens. They're the 1 seed, but they lose to somebody that's not a Big Ten team, whatever. Mm-hmm. Of course, Ohio State fans will be disappointed, but maybe it just wasn't your night. And then if you reflect on the season, I think the number 1 thing that Ohio State fans would reflect upon in that season would be a win over Michigan. That would be the most important thing. Mm-hmm. But then I do think I think Ohio State fans would think to themselves, and we were the Big Ten champs, and we made the playoff. I don't think the Big Ten champion part would be a 0. I think it would be part of the story that you would mention.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like it's not what you're striving for, but then
it's not what you're striving for.
After the fact, depending on what else happens, it could be a nice thing to reflect back on. Yeah.
And then the thing that I think you do care about is that, over a 20-year period, Ohio State won 11 Big Ten championships. Mm-hmm. Or winning 13 is better than winning 8 in a 20-year stretch. And like in that context, I really do think you matter because it's still a way that we define programs. So But I think in the year, like in the season of it, is the way it's least appreciated. It is most appreciated in the specific moment, in the 3 hours where the game's played and the 30 minutes you're on the stage lifting the trophy, and then the wide view historically. I think it matters both those places.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't really matter much in February when you're thinking about it. Anyway, this is not John. This is confusing. John wants to talk about the Big Ten schedules. So he says there are clear chunks of similar geographic universities in the Big Ten. So he's talking about, like, he says the original 10 plus Nebraska are the Midwest teams. Then you have the Eastern teams, which are Maryland, Rutgers, and Penn State. And then you have the 4 West Coast teams. Mm-hmm. He's saying it seems logical to protect games in the Eastern and Pacific chunks. If, for example, USC has to play the other 3 Pacific teams every year, travel concerns could be mitigated, right? If Penn State had protected games against Maryland and Rutgers, the majority of those teams will be played on the East Coast, limiting the potential for too many long road trips. Let's reevaluate schedules, prioritize big games, and maintain rationality in a non-regional conference. Maybe in an unpopular opinion, Ohio State should play Penn State every year. So...
I'm bad at my job. I actually thought the West Coast teams played each other every year.
Yeah. No, they just have their rivalries.
USC doesn't play Washington this year.
Yeah. Oregon and Washington always play, and USC and UCLA always play. And Penn State doesn't have any rivals. And then, like, we know all those other ones that they did protect some of the rivalries. The thing that I will generally agree with is that I don't think it should just be equal. That when you look at a 5-year schedule, like what they have out now, it's like you play everybody 2 or 3 times, right? Except your protected rivalries that play every year. I don't think that's how they should think about it. And so I think you could think about it in geographic chunks, but I actually think what is more important is leaning into the best teams playing each other more.
Yes,
now,
I agree.
That could be counterproductive because it's like, oh, let's have our playoff contenders give each other a guaranteed loss during the regular season. But again, if you're dealing with automatic qualifiers and 4 Big Ten teams are getting in every year, then you can encourage, let's have the best teams play against each other so we can figure out the 4 automatic qualifiers. But it's like, why would we have Ohio State play Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, and actually, who's the 5th best team in the Big Ten right now?
Indiana. You forgot Indiana.
Are they the 5th best? So you're talking about, like, if you're talking like the Big 5 going into the next 5 years, we want Ohio State to play the 4 other best programs in the Big Ten every year for the next 5 years. You would say that's Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, and Indiana. And I'm not questioning you. I'm just like, wait, I think you're right. But like, that's where we are, right?
I think so.
So say you did that. Say you said that to those 5 teams. We want you guys to play each other. So those are 4 of your non-conference games every year. The 5 best teams are going to play each other every year for the next 5 years. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. Like, I saw like Stuart Mandel tweet something about like how ESPN executives were dancing every week when they look at the TV ratings because, for instance, Ohio State, Wisconsin is the CBS big time Big Ten game this week. So from that standpoint, yeah, create more compelling TV matchups. I think would benefit the league. I think it only probably works in the automatic qualifier world because you don't want to do like kind of what the SEC is potentially doing this year, which is have all your teams eliminate each other. So I don't think that would ever happen until we get to the automatic qualifier world. But I guess that would be a nice benefit of the AQ system is that you would get more of those marquee matchups. And like, I don't know, it's sort of it'd be like a kind of like an NFL thing, right? Because like the NFL matches up the divisions like based on who finished 1st through 4th like that year, right? So wouldn't it be fun like every offseason to like unveil the next year's schedule and seeing like, oh, we got to go play whatever. You know, you're going to have Michigan regardless, but like we're going to Oregon, Oregon's coming here kind of thing. Like, yeah, I think it could be fun for the league if they did it that way.
And do you think like trying to adhere to something, and I guess there maybe, but like, well, we want every 4-year player to get to play in every stadium in the league or whatever. I think imbalance would be fine.
Yes.
In an 18-team ocean to ocean league. I think if Ohio State plays Oregon and Penn State and Indiana and Washington more frequently than it plays Rutgers and Northwestern and Purdue and UCLA, I think that's okay. And then the thing that I don't know is, in that world, are Purdue and Northwestern and Rutgers and UCLA complaining that they aren't playing Ohio State more because maybe you're losing that draw, that ticket, right? That sellout crowd? Or are you like, thank God, we don't want to have to play the best teams every year. Rutgers is like, we'll play Purdue. Give us more Purdue. We have a chance to win that game. We're never going to beat Ohio State. I don't know where those lesser teams would fall if you said, we're going to think of the Big Ten in 3 tiers, top, middle, and bottom. The top's going to play against each other more. The middle's going to play against each other more. The bottom's going to play against each other more. Not exclusively, but more. Who argues that? Who's against that?
I guess the middle and bottom teams, that they feel like they have a roster in a given year that could potentially push for a playoff spot, but like you're not going to. Because the question, I guess, would be like, again, this only would happen in an automatic qualifier world. Like, if you're a bottom team or a middle team that ends up with a really solid record, but it's because you didn't have to play any of the top teams, you're not going to get rewarded for that record by being put into a playoff spot.
Indiana did.
Yeah, but I don't know that would happen if Indiana, if the Big Ten essentially gets to like pick its playoff participants and then has to assess like like Indiana got there because it didn't have to play anybody. Like the only 2 good teams that played were Ohio State and Michigan, right? Like I don't know that I'd want to be in that position if I were a middle or bottom tier team.
Do you think there's a way to figure it out? I think maybe they wouldn't go too far. I think they could lean in at least a little bit into like, you know what? Let's like have Ohio State and Oregon play like at least 7 times out of 10 years, when the schedule might tell us it's 5.
I think you could almost like have sort of like half your conference schedule be on whatever kind of cycle you want it to be, and then leave space after every season to like assess who's good, who's not, and then build the rest of your schedule out that way.
Yeah. And I think TV would want that. And so I think there's probably, I could see it getting to that. I could see it getting that. And I don't think there would have been anything wrong with that because like, it's just, you have 18 teams in the league. It's impossible to keep it even. And so the heck with it. All right. We'll finish up with this one. I think I forgot to put the name on this, so I apologize. They apologize if this has been asked before, but for a mid-ball knower like myself and perhaps others on here, can you guys explain on our breakdown how and why the scripted first drive is always so successful? I can't count how many Buckeye games I've watched where the opposing team will have a long, methodical drive on the first possession and then basically nothing until 6 minutes left in the game. Obviously, the drive is all scripted and I assume practice ahead of time, but why is it only successful the first time? Why can't the defense anticipate that it's coming and it be stopped like practically every other drive? Why can't an offense script 3 or 4 drives? Is it the defense finding its footing, false hope for whatever teams are screaming about in the locker room, something else that baffles me every time? So I'll let you handle this because I also am a mid-ball knower. So you are an expert ball knower. What's the deal with this?
I don't know that it's successful every time. I think it tends to be more successful when Ohio State's playing worse teams. Like Texas's scripted drive didn't go well. you know what I mean?
True.
But Ohio State, I don't think Ohio State came out and played like it's vanilla based defense. Also, Texas had no idea what Ohio State's base defense was, I guess. If you have the ball, you kind of have to show your cards first, I think. And that's not a hard and fast rule. And not every team scripts. Like Ohio State doesn't script offensively. But if you are scripting in an effort to like start fast, set the tone, and I think also like if you're a defense knowing you're going up against an offense that has a reputation for being a heavy script team, I think you almost want to show up in your base defense to get them to show those cards. Like what we had that conversation I think about Minnesota. Like what do you think you know about us, right? So Minnesota goes down the field and kicks a field goal, and Ohio State's like, okay, thanks for telling us what you'd like to do. Here's man coverage. Have a good day, kind of thing, right? So I think it does favor the offense. I think the defense. I think it's harder to script defensively than it would be offensively. And I also like unless it's like a huge game, I don't know that you want to go out there and throw your change up like in the first series if you're a defense. So I don't know. There's probably not like a great answer to that question, but I do think defense probably tend to open in base a little more often than offenses do. So that's why the scripted drive like usually works so much. And it's also why like I rarely, if ever, get out of sorts on a successful opening drive. Just like, okay, here, like it's like a separate game. It's like you get the ball, whatever happens. Drive 2, the game has begun, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I do think it makes sense, right? Because if you're going to script, you're going to script your best stuff. So it's even not that it's necessarily scripted. It's like your best plays. It's the plays that fit your personnel the best, that you ran best in practice that week, that guys showed repeatedly they could execute the best. And then once you do it the first time, then a defense is like, oh, no, wait, that when you line up this way, you're going to do that. So if you try to do the exact same thing again, it's not going to be as good. And then if you try to do a counter off the thing you ran before, well, you're countering off for the best thing you did. Well, the counter is probably not as good as the best thing that you did, right? So it also is sort of like everybody has like their 5 best plays, and a lot of them are probably part of your script. So, do you think that could be part of it, though? So it's not necessarily that it's because we always talk about it in terms of like scripted, which can make the rest of the game feel like, well, what are you doing the rest of the game? Just like pulling it out of your butt? Like, this is when we had a plan. And then this was when we were like, I don't know, what do we call now? But actually, is it less that it's scripted and this is our best stuff? And now we're going to run maybe our best stuff again, which means it probably won't be as good, or we're going to run our stuff that's our second best stuff.
Yeah, well, you have like your base, your bread and butter, your go-tos that I think you start to fall back on. I think you can only perfect so many plays within a week, right? A week of preparation. So I think that's more what it is. Like you can't. Ryan Day talks sometimes, and like it's part of the reason why Ohio State's really good in like bowl games with extra time to prepare, because they do kind of perfect like 40 plays when they go in that game. It's like Ryan Day in the press conference, like we ran this play 142 times in practice. It's like, oh, great, but you can't do that in the course of a normal game week. So there's probably only, I don't know, 5 to 10 plays you can really hone in on in that kind of way, and then you sort of have to fall back into like whatever your tendencies and your bread and butter is, and then. When you do that, and then you're outmatched from a talent standpoint, like a lot of teams find themselves against Ohio State, then you just see Ohio State's defense start to take over in those situations.
Yeah. Okay. Still have a couple that we'll save for another show, but we appreciate everybody's input. If you want to be able to like ask questions of us in a situation like this and have it be talked about, you can join us on Substack, billanddougosu.substack.com. We love our folks there, and they contribute a whole lot to how we view the team. They're like kind of like our focus group as we're providing coverage there. So thanks for joining us here on YouTube. Thanks for joining us here on your podcast feed. But if you want a little bit more, there's more happening over on Substack. Anything else, Landis? You good?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right. You're feeling a little better.
Yeah, I feel much better. It does not feel like my brain is trying to leap out of my head, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we're glad that is the case, and we're appreciative of you guys for being here for now. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was the Bill and Doug Show.